Okay, welcome back. We're going to look at a little deeper into the range input type without a form. And we're going to look into how JavaScript can process that form data. Okay, so here we go. So I haven't talked about JavaScript objects and methods and properties of objects. And one in particular, the get element by ID, which you give it the ID and it will bring back the element or get the element access. I haven't really talked about events, and one in particular on change. So anytime this particular element changes, it triggers, and that trigger can be caught with an event handler. Nor functions in JavaScript and parameters in JavaScript. We'll look at those. Okay, so you're familiar with this now. You put this in, except for that last line. You put all this in, and this generates a control with a min value and a max value, and it can step a certain amount. Its default's at 1, but it can step a certain amount for each increment. And so there it is. We've seen it. And the range, that's just the type of input. The ID is a normal ID. We picked range 1. And the name is the actual variable that the value of the control will go into. Starts off at a min value, goes up to a max value, and then steps for each increment of that control. What we haven't looked at is this line. This line catches the on change occurrence of something in this particular control. So when that control changes, it just gets fired. And when it gets fired, an event handler takes over. And in that event handler, it gives the value of that. So a little bit deeper, we have the event on change, and then the update range. That right there is a function that we write. We named it update range in camel case, and we give it the value of this particular element. That's what this means, and then the value of it, the actual value attribute. So that gets grabbed and sent to that function. Okay, so let's take a look at that JavaScript function, all right, that we're going to write. Here it is, function, then the name of the function, and then the parameter val. And the val is a word that we just used, we picked up, that we just created, rather, and that will hold the value that we give it. So looking at this, everything in green is part of the JavaScript language. Actually, I meant to say syntax down here. It's part of the JavaScript syntax. It isn't necessarily something that we have created. So with that said, let's take a look at the things that we can change. All right, the first one is the document. Now, the document is the actual document, the page object that is in the browser at that current time. Now, I really need some spiritual Zen music here, but this saying, you cannot go into the same river twice, by Heraclitus, is kind of theoretical, right? Because once you step in again, it's a different river. Well, anytime you mess with a website, you scroll with it or you move your mouse over it, it isn't the same website. Even though it doesn't really change outwardly, you've changed it by interacting with it, and the behavior is caught, is handled by JavaScript. So let's go back to that. So you can see that the document is this fluid document that's changing all the time. And from that, we use a method called getElementById that does exactly what it says. It goes out and grabs the element of a particular ID, in this case, output, right? So we wanted to grab the output ID, grab the element that has an output of ID, an ID of output, and attend to its value. All right, we're going to do something with the value. So the value is the value inside that, whether it's null or whatever, it's the value. And then that equal next to it assigns the value we gave to this function. This value corresponds to this one. So we are assigning, when some other element changes, we're assigning a new element the value that we sent to this function. Now, by the way, look at that word output right here. Just, I'll point out to it. Just look at it and watch what happens. So look at it. It took a while to line this up. So look at it. And, okay, there's the value that where is. I have to get past that, but watch. Okay, see, so that is this new element that we create that will output and store the output value. Okay, so with that, we kind of introduced some complicated advanced JavaScript with objects and methods and properties. A particular method, a method is like a function, and a property is like a value. So with that said, a little bit of extra theory there. Let's just go in and be real quick about it and code this guy out. Yeah. So I'll see you in the code. Yeah.